Hello everyone, thank you for joining us. My name is Annelise Calieres at the Drone Office. Today I will walk you through an easy access guide to UK drone regulations. It will help organizations that are getting started in the drone industry understand the overall landscape in terms of regulations. And it will also help existing players because we will walk you through the 2026 updates in the UK, and I'm sure it will prove informative. The UK drone regulations are risk proportionate. There are three categories based on the level of risk: open, specific, and certified. Most recreational flyers, if not all recreational flyers, would be operating in the open category. That's the operations that present the lowest risk. A good number of commercial operators are also operating in the open category. These operations do not require a specific approval from the CAA. There is no direct oversight by the CAA. On the right-hand side, you can see certified category. It is like crewed aviation, except that it is uncrewed. As of today, I am not aware of any operator holding a certified category authorization in the UK or in Europe. It may come one day for flying taxis, possibly. In the middle, the specific category is essentially everything that is not open, but not certified either. It is a pretty broad spectrum of operations. It does require direct oversight by the CAA and a specific authorization to operate from the CAA. It's important to remember that that set of regulation was approved a few seconds before Brexit, so it is pretty much aligned with the regulations that are currently implemented in Europe as well. Flying in the open category is pretty simple. You must follow the rules. From an organization standpoint, an organization must get an operator ID. It is valid for 1 year, costs around £12. An organization means a person that is either a physical person or a legal person, a person that will be legally responsible for the operation. Remote pilots must follow a training accessible online on the CAA website and then pass the test. That test and that training is free. The flyer ID resulting from passing the test is valid for 5 years. Remote pilots in the open category who want to enjoy additional privileges, typically to fly closer to uninvolved people, must have an additional training certificate. It's called A2COC, A2 Certificate of Competence. Approximately, I think, 28 training organizations in the UK are accredited and can deliver that training. It costs between £100 and £200 and it is valid for 5 years. So in the open category, there is no direct oversight by the CAA. The remote pilot must follow the rules, the drone code, essentially. It means flying your drone within visual line of sight, keeping unaided contact between the remote pilot and the drone, and being in a position to determine where it is heading to. Maximum height is 120 meters. Maximum weight is 25 kilos, meaning if your drone weighs more than 25 kilos, then you cannot operate in the open cat. You have to apply for an authorization in the specific category. You must respect the no-fly zone, that is, do not fly near airports, aerodromes, sensitive sites, prison schools, military bases, etc. There are a number of apps available on mobile phones providing that kind of no-fly zone maps. And then you also have to check the UAS limitation. Wind and rain are not drones' best friends, so do check and read the notice before operating your drone. CAB 2012 is the CAA publication that summarizes the open category today. I will not spend too much time on it because changes are coming, and I'll spend more time on the expected update of the table. What I would like to mention though is that today in the open category, it's essentially either you fly a sub 250-gram drone like a DJI Mini, it's considered harmless, you can fly over uninvolved people, or essentially you're everything else, because currently, in absence of class marking, the A1 and A2 subcategories are not very useful. The major change coming into force in 2026 in the open category is the introduction of class marking. To be honest, class marking could have been adopted back in 2020 with the rest of the regulatory package, but somehow it was not. It's coming into force now. Class marking means that the drones that have received that label of class marking have been checked by a third-party auditor, if you want, and they do meet a set of technical requirements so that the aviation authority is comfortable to grant additional privileges to the remote pilot operating those particular drones. It means typically that if you operate a C1 or UK1 drones, it will be less than 900 grams, and you will be in a position to fly over uninvolved people, something that is only limited to sub 250 grams today under the current scheme. Also, if you fly a C2 drone or UK2 drone, it will be less than 4 kilograms, and if you activate the low speed mode, flying at less than 5 meters per second, the minimum distance from uninvolved people is reduced to 5 meters. It is much better than the current set of rules. Now, of course, not endangering people is part of regulation, and persistent hoovering is not, honestly, it is not explicitly mentioned as part of regulation, but should be avoided. But it doesn't change the fact that if you fly a C1 or C2 drone, you will be in a position to fly over or near uninvolved people. It's possible that in January, when that class marking becomes effective, a lot of information will be about remote ID and geo-awareness. It is true that these two features are two features among the technical requirements of class marking. And there are features, to be honest, to enable policing. Remote ID means that the drone will emit its position and key information such as the operator ID, so that a police officer, for example, suspecting an illegal flight can intercept the signal and identify the drone operator. Geo-awareness is a functionality that informs the remote pilot that it is flying close to a no-fly zone. This slide is a possible update of CAP 2012. I've already covered the main news that are around C1 and C2 to fly over or near people. I'll just add as well that the CAA will rebrand or rename the category so that it's more explicit. So we won't be talking about A1, A2, A3 anymore, but over people, open near people, open far from people. There are some other elements on this slide in terms of requirements for operator ID, flyer ID, training, etc. You will have the opportunity to review that slide in due course during your leisure time. Some people may wonder what's going to happen to their current fleet of drones. It's important to understand that reference to legacy when it comes to class marking means no class marking. But it doesn't mean that your current drone doesn't have class marking. Actually, probably it does. Legacy means no class marking, so if you hold drones that have at the bottom EU class mark C1, C2, C3, then these will be accepted starting January 2026 to allow you to fly under over people, near people in the new scheme. The background to it is that your drone has received a class mark in Europe, it has been reviewed, and its equivalent is flying in Europe happily in the open category. That's the rationale behind it. Legacy drones, meaning absolutely no class marking, will continue to benefit from the current open category dispositions. That is, if you fly under the current A1 and A2, then you can continue to fly under the current A1 and A2 transition set of rules, with I think one exception, the one in the middle. If you are currently in A1 with a drone between 250 and 499 grams, you will have to follow the A2 rules. It is not a matter of regulation, but it's interesting to note that in Europe, for now, all C0123 drones are Chinese, except one French and one South Korean manufacturers. Chinese drones are very good and they are very competitive, so they are hard to beat. You may notice that we will be talking about class marking in the specific category, and in the specific category there are some non-Chinese drone manufacturers. Now let's move to the specific category. The risk is higher. There is direct oversight by the CAA, and the drone operator must apply for an operation authorization. There are actually two types of OAs in the specific category. UK PDRA01, standing for Predefined Risk Assessment, and UK SORA. UK PDRA01 is actually the oldest instrument, so to speak. It's been around for more than 10 years. It used to be called PIFCO, and I would say there are roughly 2,500 organizations, mostly commercial operators, holding a PDRA01. PDRA01 is not simple, but I would say that the key metrics of PDRA01 are now very well mastered by the market, and operators are just used to it. So there is a broad set of literature in terms of CAP 722, but the reality of PDRA01 is that it can fit into one A4 in terms of what it is that you can and cannot do. Before we move to the details of these two sets of authorizations, I'd like to remind the community that actually the three big buckets that we are going through, open category, and then UK PDRA01 and UK SORA, are three authorizations that have not been developed at the same time nor by the same people. Therefore, it might be strange, but there is no safety continuum between those three. Typically, even between the open and the specific category SORA, that are also live in many countries around the world, there is no direct bridge between SORA open category and the beginning of the specific category. To be honest, I personally find that the specific category is more conservative than the open category, but the reality is that there are millions of flying hours in the open category, and I'm not aware of any issue, so it may be more liberal but still safe in the open category. So let's go through the basics of UK PDRA01. Again, PDRA01 predates UK SORA. It's been live for more than 10 years. First, in terms of organization, organizations, as mentioned, must get an approval by the CAA. It is valid for 1 year and it costs approximately £500. The operator must submit an operational manual. Remote pilots must pass an additional competency test called GVC, General Velos Competency. It costs between £500 and £1,000 depending on where you do your training, and it is valid for 5 years. In addition, remote pilots must maintain currency, of course. It's minimum 2 hours every 3 months. And finally, if you're a commercial operator, then by law, you must be insured for your drone operations. In terms of what it is that you can do in terms of operations, you can fly Velos, at a maximum height of 120 meters with a UAS of maximum weight 25 kilograms. You're going to say, but hang on, what's the difference with the open category? The difference up until now comes in terms of access to congested areas, meaning urban environment, and the ability to fly close to uninvolved people. So with a PDRA01, you can fly in congested areas. You can fly up to 50 meters away from uninvolved people, reduced to 30 meters during takeoff and landing. And then overflight is permitted, although, and I'm quoting the CAA because it is a sensitive topic, any overflight of uninvolved people must be kept to a minimum. You must also check no-fly zones, do not fly into restricted airspace above prisons, etc., unless you have received permission to do so. So now, with the new possibilities offered by class marking into the open category, we can suspect that some of the operators who currently operate under PDRA01 would consider transitioning to the open category if they if for the operations they have, they use drones that are sub 900 grams or 4 kilos and fit into C1 and C2, then technically speaking they don't need a PDRA01. They could fly in the open category. They may want to maintain a PDRA01 approval, I would say, as a sign of professionalism, but technically speaking, I suspect that a number of PDRA01 holders could actually transition to the open category. If your operation does not fit into UK PDRA01, then you must apply for a different kind of approval, which is called UK SORA operation authorizations. For example, your drone may weigh more than 25 kilos, or you may want to operate beyond visual line of sight, either with visual mitigation or in atypical air environment, or even in segregated airspace, in which case you clearly do not fit into a PDRA01 and you must apply for a UK SORA approval. Some people would say that SORA is a bit heavy reading, is complex, and I can only say, yes, you're right. Remember that initially SORA was designed to facilitate authorizations of a broad spectrum of specific category operations up to delivery to many places across the UK, whereas you might be doing data capture over 1 or 2 kilometers. So this is a very broad spectrum. What I would recommend in terms of UK SORA is that you do not need to be an expert at everything in terms of SORA. You do not need to do that. You only need to master the user cases and your requirements for your specific type of authorizations. And then if you talk to people who understand SORA and you focus on your specific need as opposed to mastering the whole thing, it becomes a very powerful instrument. Now, I can't go through the whole of SORA in this tutorial. It's meant to be an easy access guide. I had recorded a SORA introduction back in March. I understand that it's still very much valid and useful for people who are getting started on UK SORA. I can only recommend to watch it if you can stand my face for another 30 or 40 minutes. It's available on our website and on YouTube. We discussed the introduction of class marking in the open category. Not many people are aware that there are some drones that are class marked C5, C6 with specific technical features that have been validated just like C0 to C3. They are commercialized in Europe and they could be very useful, for example, when applying for a UK SORA. Let me walk you through some of those features, and I'm very sorry for the newcomers. It might be SORA wobblish, but give us a call, get in touch. Soon you'll be experts and understand it all. If I look at C5, low speed mode, remember, if you have a low speed mode, fly at max 5 meters per second, your minimum distance from uninvolved people can be reduced to 5 meters. Flight termination system, containment. Don't ask me why. Maybe it's because that set of regulation started at a time when there were flyaways, maybe. Now, to be honest, it's not as if we see many flyaways, but here we go. There are requirements for containment, making sure that your drone will not fly away and then crash very far away. To mitigate that risk, there are requirements for a flight termination system. That is, if your drone is flying away, there is a separate system that will essentially operate like a kill switch and terminate the flight. Impact reduction system. It's like a parachute. It means that if your drone has an issue for one reason or another, starting with the FTS being triggered, then when it lands on the ground, its kinetic energy will be reduced so that it doesn't kill anyone. So typically, if you are, talking UK SORA, if your ground risk is high, you need to get a reduction via M2 mitigation. Impact reduction system would serve that purpose. Control C2 link monitoring, this is normal. We'll know that the live link between the remote pilot and its UAS, it's like the arm between my brain and my hand. So assurance on the C2 link is part of the technical requirements. And then it's important to note that some C2, C3 drones, starting with drones manufactured by a very, very well-known Chinese manufacturer, can be equipped with completely separate accessory kit by third parties, if you want, that can upgrade them to C5. So C5 drones, I think, are definitely an option to consider if you must operate and get an approval under UK SORA for relatively high GRC, ground risk levels. C6 features, it has a speed limitation, it has a programmable flight path and geocaching, because it is meant to support BVLOS operations. So typically BVLOS, you don't fly manual, you fly fully automatic, and so that program is validated, if you want, through the class marking. The geocaching is also validated, so you program your flight path, and then if your drone gets out of its box from the program, then the geocaching gets into motion. It also has a flight termination system that is, again, as I mentioned, to deal with containment issues, and the same control link. And there are also conversion kits, not for all drones, but for some drones from a very well-known Chinese manufacturer. In summary, the UK is going to adopt class marking starting January 1st, 2026. It will have a major positive impact in the open category. In particular, if you have a C1 UK1 drone sub 900 grams, you may fly over uninvolved people. And if you have a C2 UK2 drone sub 4 kilo, you may fly near people down to 5 meters if you activate a low speed mode 5 meters per second. Now, in the specific category, the transition to UK SORA will continue as drone operators holding an OSC approval hit the renewal date, I suppose. It is true that UK SORA can be a bit challenging and daunting initially. We can only recommend that you talk to people who understand SORA and focus on purely the approvals that you need, not trying to master the whole of SORA. That is very broad and covers a very broad range of user cases. We really recommend that you try and develop the standard recipe under SORA, which will be your generic SORA OA, so that you take the most benefit out of that powerful tool. Thank you. Do not hesitate to reach out. hello@thedroneoffice.com. We always welcome questions or challenges. If you would like to engage with us on some operations, on some user cases, we'd be delighted to support your organizations. Stay tuned. Remember that we had that UK SORA tutorial registered and recorded back in March, and we'll make sure to have an additional tutorial on SORA, an actual user case to continue to simplify access to SORA in the coming months. Thank you.